Good evening, boys and girls, and welcome back to the Carla and Crappy Show. Carla, it's the last weekend of October. We're about to get to the point where college football season gets completely serious, and I'm wearing soccer stuff.
You're wearing soccer stuff, and I'm at a church, so we're batting 1,000.
This is perfect. I'll mention my Columbus Crew stuff later on. How you doing? It's been a couple weeks. Had another break.
Has been a couple weeks. We missed last week, but that happens. But and of course we missed what we thought was going to be a lackluster week. And isn't that always what happens? You look at the schedule and go, "This is going to be a bad week," and then all heck breaks loose.
I think the upshot is that there are no bad weeks. I think that you might struggle to find a weekend going in where it's like, I'm not sure. I would have thought, as an example, that Pitt UNC, which is going on tonight as we speak, might have been a fun one to talk about had it been on Saturday. And as it turns out, no. Pitt is not handling that well, or at least they weren't when I came upstairs. But we have three that we think have potential, and including one that does not involve ranked teams, although there'll be names that you probably recognize. In fact, let's start there because I think that's the first one on the schedule. It's nice because we don't have to stay up until the middle of the night to watch a Pac-12 game. This is a USC visiting Cal. SC is a 5.5-point favorite. Both teams are 2-2 in their respective sides of the conference. Although SC, I think, has a better, albeit outside shot at getting their division title and getting to a title game. But anyway, no one's going to play any defense in this game. This is going to be a lot of fun.
This is going to be to take the over, right, in this game, yes. Especially after what Utah did last week against what they did against Utah. See, I lost my train of thought. That's what happens. It's Thursday. See, we're a day off. It's messing everything up. I'm not in my usual location, so okay. But no, USC just absolutely destroyed Utah last week, which it's weird because USC was favored in that game, even though they were ranked higher. Utah's ranked. It was one of those weird things that like Vegas knew something that the rest of us didn't. Right. And some of those things, I mean, it wasn't even just a beating of Utah. I mean, it was a drumming. It was just something like we hadn't seen, other than maybe what Utah did to Oregon earlier in the season, kind of the equivalent. However, USC won that game partially because, and for a good portion because of its defense and Cameron Smith with 3 picks. And obviously he was Defensive Player of the Week for the conference and all that good stuff. But so we talk about USC's offense and we talk about the chaos that program has been under this year. It was the defense that really kind of stepped up against Utah and really kind of led that team, even though the offense played extremely well. I want to say that the momentum came from the defensive side of the ball. Cal, on the other hand, has lost 2 straight. They started the season 5-0, but this is what Cal did last year, right? They started the season 5-0 and then lost 6 of their last 7. Here we are again. They've lost 2 straight. The air raid offense was going great the first 5 games. Now it's kind of But it's interesting because the USC defense prepared last week for Utah's run game. Utah was a very strong running team. Now they have to prepare for a Cal team that throws the ball a lot. Is the USC defense ready for that, especially on the road at Cal? I think that's going to be, pretty interesting. Jared Goff, the quarterback for Cal, already has 20 touchdowns on the season, and we're not that. I mean, we're at the midway point, but 20 touchdowns, that's a lot. And it's top 10 in the nation in passing yards right now. He was number 1 in the nation for a while there. And then the last 2 losses have kind of done something about that. USC is always just such a, you don't know what to make of them.
Especially this year.
You could say the same thing 2 years ago too. With the whole Kiffin getting fired and that whole. I mean, this has become a common occurrence for USC. In fact, somebody tweeted, and I wish I could remember who tweeted it now on Saturday, that USC has more top 5 wins with interim head coaches than they do with coaches they actually hired.
That's a great stat.
Yeah. Between Ed Orgeron and the current interim, whose name is escaping me right now, like they've got 2 wins against top 5 programs. Kiffin and Sarkisian only had 1 combined. So I'm going to say USC's riding the momentum right now. I'm going to say they're going to win this game, but it's going to be a fun one to watch, I think. And in the Pac-12, who knows right now? I'm going to say USC, but because the Pac-12 is so crazy, you know what the heck? Cal probably wins this game. Mm-hmm. And I have no logic behind that, just other than the fact that that's the Pac-12 this year.
I think you have to look at momentum a little bit, but you also have to take into consideration that this is an excellent opportunity for Cal, and one that they don't have every season. Mm-hmm. The fact that they're playing at home, this really could be a toss-up, and especially if you're talking about two prolific offenses, a game like this could turn on a fluky play. And suddenly the Golden Bears are up and winning a football game. I think just based on recent results, I think Southern Cal is the winner here. But boy, it really could go very easily. Could go Cal's way. Just one funny bounce and there they go. Next we go to Jacksonville. In a game that I don't think we're supposed to refer to as the world's largest cocktail party anymore. I don't know if anyone does that, but I imagine there are going to be some cocktails there anyway. And this is, of course, the annual matchup with Georgia and Florida. Florida, number 11 in the country. Georgia, inexplicably, is unranked. Florida is only a 2.5-point favorite in this traditional rivalry game. What do you think?
Yeah, Georgia is unranked because of its performance the last week or so. What happened to that offense? You feel bad.
That's the inexplicable part.
You feel bad for Georgia for losing Nick Chubb, but we've talked about Georgia quite a bit this year, and we've said that one of the strengths of Georgia on offense was the fact they had a trio of backs in the backfield. That it was just this constant drumming of fresh legs coming into the backfield. It's like you lose Nick Chubb and it went away. And I guess I don't understand that. And part of that might be quarterback play.
Quarterback play that can be the issue of confidence. As an Ohio State fan, I noticed differences between maybe the way the offensive line plays depending on who's taking the snaps. And that's something we can get into at a future game. But that's if the offensive line is confident in one back and maybe not so much in the other guys, that's a little mental thing that could make a difference.
Yeah, and it showed last week. Come on, 9-6 against Missouri in a game that was even worse than a typical 7-5 Big Ten game.
God.
It was ugly. In fact, I would venture to argue that the Georgia Missouri game was even more ugly than the Vanderbilt Missouri game.
Okay.
It was at least competitive and had. It wasn't that much better, but it was Vanderbilt's not a good football team, and Georgia has the potential to still be one. That's what baffles me out of this. Gosh, if Florida wins this game, they're going to take a 2-game lead with 2 conference games to play in the SEC East.
Pretty much insurmountable.
This year, it certainly looks that way. And so you've got to think this is a must win. For Georgia, if they have any thoughts at all of winning the SEC East. Florida coming in off of a loss at LSU, but you almost have to say, and I know there's no moral victories in football, I know they say that all the time, but you've got to think that Florida is feeling good after the performance they put up in the swamp last week against LSU. Right. Everybody wrote them off. I wrote them off. I said there's no way LSU is just going to crush them. They hung in there. They had one bad quarter. The second quarter, they gave up 28 points. They just kind of laid an egg in the second quarter. But the rest of the game, they were right there. And you've got to think that they're feeling pretty good about that, even with backup quarterback, who really isn't a backup quarterback because he started last year. So, again, trends. I'm gonna go with your thinking along the lines that we just talked about in the Pac-12 with the trends. Georgia not trending well right now. Florida is, even with the loss of their quarterback. And I just think you see a down team in Georgia and an up team right now in Florida, and I think that momentum is going to keep carrying them on. But Georgia absolutely has to win this game. But I think the Gators do.
I think I'm gonna pick Georgia in this game. This is it's an important game for Florida, and they really could put their division away with a win. Although, as you said, still 2 conference games left after this one. Not necessarily critical that they win this to win the SEC East. And for Georgia, a team that we all thought was going to be pretty good, and they certainly looked that way at the beginning of the season, all the way through September. This is a cliche, but this is the game that makes your season. You've had some disappointing losses. Getting embarrassed by Alabama. On the road at Tennessee is not an awful loss, but not. If again, you look at the schedule at the beginning of the season, you think, yeah, that's probably a win by the Bulldogs. Don't know how you explain last week.
Yeah,
that's a great baseball game. I think that's how this one's going to work. Georgia's going to be motivated. This is kind of their last crack at what would be at least a tolerable season. And I think they're gonna pull this one out in Jacksonville. Our final game. This is an interesting one. We go to Raleigh, North Carolina, where NC State hosts number 3 Clemson. Clemson's a 10-point favorite. NC State is not a bad football team at 5-2. And Carla, I would argue that this kind of game is exactly why the word Clemsoning exists.
Yes. And I was just going to say that. I'm like, if I'm a Clemson fan, I am terrified of this game because it sets up exactly the way that a Clemsoning situation would. They're coming off of a huge win against Miami. In fact, Miami fires its head coach immediately following the game.
Right.
They get a huge bump in the AP polls. So they're sitting at number 3 in the country. And they play Florida State next week, essentially for the ACC Atlantic Division title.
Yes.
This is that trap game, and they're on the road at NC State, an NC State team, but like you said, not terrible. Now, again, following trends, they're not trending well at the moment. They had 2 pretty bad losses at the beginning of October, had a bye week, looked pretty good last week against Wake Forest, but again, Wake Forest is one of those games that you're supposed to win.
Sure.
So where are they right now mentally? We really don't know. But being at home and having the potential of playing spoiler, they're going to be playing up. If I'm a Tigers fan, I am terrified of this game. Clemson should win this game.
Mm-hmm.
Keyword being should.
Mm-hmm.
And if they win this game, I would go out on a limb and say they win next week as well, because they're going to ride that momentum in, and then they know it's that win, and the coast and the Atlantic is theirs. So. Yeah, it's just defense. Both teams are in top 10 total defense. I think the line is too big. I really do. Both teams top 10 total defense in the country, and yet Clemson is a 10-point favorite on the road. That doesn't compute with me. I think Clemson wins, but I don't think it's going to be by 10 points, and I think Clemson fans are going to be chewing their fingernails until that final whistle blows at the end of the 4th quarter.
They may be doing that anyway, just given the situation and everything that we've talked about, because there is no more perfect situation for an upset than with this game.
Mm-hmm.
In this situation. I have a sense. And this has been me in the butt before. There have been a couple different years where you and I have been really high on Clemson at the beginning of the season. Then it's like
this is your year.
Something happens in the middle of the season, and they vanish, and they're playing in the Citrus Bowl or whatever. I'm thinking that they are the class of the ACC this season. It feels like they have handled difficult situations, and I know the Notre Dame game was at home, but God, the weather was awful. And you might even get me to admit that Notre Dame's a pretty good football team. So they've been in tough situations already this season, and they've handled them well. I think this is maybe this is a team that has a modicum of professionalism. They're gonna take the right approach to this game. 10 points, maybe not, but I think they will win this one in Raleigh and move on to the what essentially will be their division championship against Florida State next week. Carla,
let me throw this out there though.
Yes.
I was just thinking about this. If Clemson loses this game and they go in against the Florida State team that suffered a loss last week, does Clemson have to win this game to keep the ACC in the playoff conversation? I think that's going to be a really interesting, because with the competition in the ACC right now, I mean, the playoff committee releases its first top 4 on Tuesday. And you've got to believe that a Clemson loss here might knock the ACC out of the top 4.
I know from past experience that a definitive win can definitely turn some heads on the committee. My one loss team going into the Big Ten championship last year won its conference championship pretty handily, and that clearly was the deciding factor that got Ohio State in the playoff. So I think there's still room. If Clemson were to stumble this week and then thump Florida State next week, that could possibly be enough that would at least keep them in the discussion.
I think it'll be interesting. I can't wait to see the first. I mean, who do you pick for your top 4 right now?
Oh man, I have no idea.
That's a tough conversation this year, which is going to make this really fun or really frustrating.
Okay, we will do it next week.
Yeah.
I want to hear your top 4. I will have mine ready as well.
Okay. Well, the committee releases theirs on Tuesday before we do the show.
The committee's doing theirs. It's time to start doing ours.
Okay.
And mostly I was happy that Ohio State finally looked like a number 1 team.
Yeah.
Last week that was nice. One more game to talk about. You can't read the whole thing. There we go. This Sunday and next, a 2-game series to decide the MLS Eastern Conference semifinal. The Columbus Crew and the Montreal Impact. Game 1 is in Montreal. Game 2 is in Columbus. Goal differentials. What decides this? What do you think? It's okay.
It's hockey season. I live in Nashville and it's hockey.
Okay, that's fine, and that's fair.
It's definitely not NFL season.
I actually don't pay attention to hockey until after college football's over. But
yeah, exactly.
But this, I mean, especially because it's an off week for Ohio State. Why not?
Go Columbus.
Thank you.
Go USA.
Yes, we like that. We will be back next week with more picks, more discussion. We will see if Clemson has been Clemsoning recently. And as we promised, we will have our first college football playoff rankings since the first show. We did this? We did those in the first show.
We did pick a top 4, and I'm going completely off the rails from where I was there because I had Auburn, and forget that.
I don't even remember. I got to go back and look.
Yeah. Can I throw one more thing in here?
Please.
For the people that are really, really hoping that Temple beats Notre Dame, I'm really sorry.
It would be fun. It would be awesome, but it
would be. I would love for it to happen with this season, and the way the season has gone, anything could happen. But no, I'm sorry, Temple. It's been a great year, and I hope you get an awesome bowl game. But yeah, this is not happening.
Yes. All of that good stuff, Temple. Go Owls.
Go Owls.
And guys, thank you very much for joining us. Carla, thank you once again.
Yep, thank you as always. See you next week.
We'll see you guys next week.